This is a picture of me at age 9. I don't think you can detect yet that I'm going to be working on software or anything, but I do look happy there. Then we see me in my football uniform in the back center here. I was on the second string team, but it was actually kind of fun. I was one of the better guys on the second string team, so I got a decent position, but I was football was never my big thing. This photo is from Lakeside High School, a private school that Paul Allen and I attended. Paul was 2 years ahead of me in school. Looking here, you might think he was about 10 years older than I am. This particular room was very important because this is where the first computer connection was created. The Mothers Club funded that teletype. This was when I was in 8th grade and first figuring out how to use the computer. And a bunch of kids came down and were fascinated, but the two who really stuck to it the most were Paul and I. In fact, people thought it was strange that Paul kept talking to a kid who was 2 years younger than him, but I had won this nationwide math contest, and so Paul knew I thought I could figure stuff out, and he kept challenging me, saying, hey, can you understand this, or can you figure out how to do that? And so he and I became very close friends, and that led directly to the creation of Microsoft only about 5 years later. Microsoft's first customer was in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and so Paul Allen and I actually moved the company there. It was just the two of us, and started hiring people. This is our early business card. You can see our creative design, which kind of looked like a microchip. And Albuquerque worked well for us, but eventually that customer was bought and the engineers were moved to California. And so it was in 1979, and we needed to think about where we should go that we could hire great people, and thought about going to Silicon Valley, but eventually decided Seattle would be the best place for us. The first picture here shows me when the company was only about 30 people, and I looked at every line of code and was thinking about how to scale up. And it was during this period that I decided that my friend from Harvard, Steve Ballmer, would be the best person to come help me grow the company. The next photo shows me meeting with John Shirley, who came to us from Radio Shack and was president, did a great job, and Steve. And really the three of us in the 80s were making the management decisions. John was fantastic because he came with experience, and Steve and I had our youthful energy, and it was a great combination. A major milestone was in 1986 when the company went public. Up until that time, it had been owned just primarily by Paul and I, but also Steve and a few other employees. Here you see Frank Gaudet, our CFO, who did a great job, particularly around the offering, and a representative from Goldman Sachs as we went around talking to various firms on the day of the IPO. So it was kind of a fun event, but I also knew from the beginning being a public company would have a lot of new complexity. Next, we see a photo from the company meeting. We did company meetings every year and always tried to make them a little special. This was where a Harley-Davidson group had come in at the start to kind of charge people up. The next shot is also a company meeting. By 1993, we're a pretty big company, probably 8,000 or so people, so we're in the Kingdom. And here Dana Carvey came and was very entertaining. I remember I got asked a question about whether I'd asked Melinda, my wife's father, for permission to marry her, and people got a laugh out of that. In addition to the company meetings, we had yearly sales meetings. So this next one is me dressed up as some unknown superhero. Having executives kind of do foolish, silly things on stage is apparently key to the formula of having highly motivated employees. And when you want to get excited about software, seeing how it's being used in schools by young people is a great way to remember why it's going to have more and more impact over time. This was an essay contest, and so all these kids had written things about how they'd like to see computers change in the future. Next, we see me outside the U.S., of course, traveling was very important as Microsoft was globalizing. Even back in the 1970s, Japan was a huge part of our business. And by 1995, we were looking in addition to China. And so here I'm in one of my visits there. Microsoft has a tradition of celebrating people as they reach their 5 and 10 and 20-year seniority boundaries. And this is one of those get-togethers where we're competing on trivia from the past. And maybe I'm nostalgic, but I often do well at those trivia games. Next, we see a get-together for our United Way campaign. And that also became a strong tradition where different groups would compete to raise the most per person, and executives were willing to put up gifts that people would bid on. So the raffle, which you see the 1994 one here, was a yearly feature. Next, we see the idea of executives being willing to spur people on for the giving campaign, both Steve and I, in some contraption that dumps water on you.